Welcome back to the deep dive. Today we are cracking open the worldview of a philosopher who basically looked at the universe, decided it was fundamentally irrational, and then claimed he'd solved the whole problem of existence by the time he was 26.
We're talking about Arthur Schopenhauer.
We are.
And we are diving into the world as will and representation. He was so convinced that this book, which he basically finished in his mid-20s, was a complete revolutionary system. Done. Perfect in his mind since 1814.
It's radical, it's pessimistic, and it really does set a new course for modern philosophy.
It absolutely does.
So our mission today is to unpack this system for you. We need to get a handle on his core two-part vision of reality, the world we think we see, and the terrifying force that's actually driving it.
And then figure out his proposed escape routes from all the suffering that he says is just inevitable.
Right. And to do that, you have to start with the giant he was wrestling with, Immanuel Kant.
You have to. Schopenhauer didn't just dismiss Kant. He saw his own work as a critical continuation of Kant's system, especially, the epistemology, how we know what we know.
So he's using Kant's operating system, but he's immediately installing his own much darker hardware. What parts of Kant was he keeping, and what did he just toss out?
Well, he keeps the most important boundary Kant set up, the idea that we can't know the thing in itself, the noumenon. We only see the world as it's filtered through our own minds.
Okay, so the filter is real.
The filter is real. But he hated Kant's specific mechanisms. He thought the whole list of categories, the external and internal sense, all of that was just clumsy, arbitrary, and way too complicated.
So, Kant, you were right that reality is filtered, but you totally over-engineered the filter.
Exactly. His whole goal was to move beyond Kant and solve the metaphysical problem Kant had basically said was unsolvable. He takes Kant's foundation and then asks this one pivotal question that drives his entire system.
What's the question?
What is this perceptible world, this Entscheidung felt, besides being my representation?
And that one question just splits everything in two. It forces this division into his two core principles, representation and will.
Yes, Vorstellung and will. The world has two sides, and we know them in two completely different ways.
Okay, so let's start with the side we think we know, representation, Vorstellung. This is everything we see, right? The world of objects, space-time, causality.
That's it. It's the entire screen of our consciousness. And everything on that screen is governed by what he calls the principle of sufficient reason.
Meaning everything has a cause. Everything is linked.
Everything exists in relation to something else. But, and this is the strange part, he says there are two things that are central to this world of representation that are still fundamentally unknowable.
How can they be unknowable if they're part of the world we're perceiving?
Because they're the boundaries. They are the conditions for all knowing. Think of them as the two poles of the entire system.
Okay, what's the first goal?
The subject, the knower itself.
You.
The perceiver. It's timeless, and you can never know it because the moment you try to look at it, it becomes an object.
You can't see the eye that's doing the seeing.
Exactly. The moment you introspect, you're just looking at another representation, not the pure knower.
Oh, okay, that makes sense.
Yeah.
So what's the other pole?
Raw matter. Just pure, quality-less stuff. We only ever perceive matter as something, a rock, a tree, a body. But the underlying substance itself, he argues, can't be perceived. It's just potential, imperishable, always there, but formless.
So the big takeaway here is kind of terrifyingly simple.
It is.
Everything we think of as solid, objective, reality, light, space, even time itself, only exists as a modification inside the mind of a knowing being.
Precisely. To say a mountain exists when no one is there to see it is, for Schopenhauer, just a string of nonsensical words. The whole phenomenal world is a picture.
Okay, so if that's the picture, the representation, let's talk about what's behind the picture. The will. The will.
This is the thing in itself.
But Kant said we could never know it. How does Schopenhauer claim he cracked the code?
He looks inward. He says the will is the inner essence, the core reality of every single thing. It's not rational. It's not a god. It's just this blind, ultimate reality.
And this is where the system gets really dark, because this will isn't an intelligence. It's just a striving.
Pure, endless, non-rational striving. And it's everywhere, from the unconscious pull of gravity to the way a plant grows toward the sun, all the way up to the most complex, goal-oriented actions of a human being.
Wait, are you seriously saying that the force that keeps a planet in orbit is fundamentally the same thing as my ambition to, say, finish a project?
That is exactly what he is saying. The only difference is the degree of complexity, the degree of its appearance, not its inner essence. The entire universe is driven by this single, blind, cosmic urge.
But that raises a huge question. If this will is some blind force in everything, how do we as individuals get access to it? How do we break through the screen of representation?
Because we have a philosophical cheat code. We have the human body.
The body is the bridge.
The body is the sole key because we have this unique dual knowledge of it.
Explain that.
Okay, first, we know our body as an object, a representation. We see it, it takes up space, it's subject to causality. If I trip, gravity works on my body just like it works on a stone.
And the second way, the secret way.
As will. Your voluntary movements,
Yeah.
they aren't caused by an act of willing. They are the act of willing, just made visible in space and time.
Yeah.
You don't have a thought that then causes your arm to move. The movement of your arm is the act of will. There are two sides of the same coin.
Whoa. So the action and the volition are the same thing. So my whole body then, my physical form.
Is the will objectified? It's a diagram of the will to life, the will zum Leben. Your teeth, your jaw, your stomach, they are the visible manifestation of the will to eat. Your legs are the will to move. Every organ is just a physical proof of a deep, primal striving.
That's an incredibly powerful idea. It makes this abstract metaphysical force feel, well, very physical. And he uses that physicality to set up this stark contrast, right, between the will continuing itself and the possibility of escape.
Yes, a tension between two poles of the body. On one side, you have the genitals. He calls them the actual focal point of the will.
The focal point.
Their entire purpose is reproduction, continuing the species. They are completely independent of knowledge or reason. They are the pure, blind will to life in action.
Okay. And the opposite pole.
The brain. The brain represents knowledge, representation. And here's the crucial conflict. The will to life uses the body to perpetuate itself through time. But the brain, the seat of knowledge, offers the radical possibility of denying the will, of achieving, as he puts it, the annihilation of the world.
And that denial, that's where we get into the consequences of this system, the world of suffering.
Yes, if the fundamental reality is just aimless striving, then conscious existence must be a state of constant lack and pain.
Existence is conflict.
Absolutely. He says human life is just a relentless struggle. Even the feeling of being healthy, that moment you just feel fine.
Yeah.
That's just a temporary victory of your organism over opposing forces like gravity and decay.
We're literally fighting for our lives with every breath.
He calls life a continuously inhibited dying. Every breath you take is just warding off death for another second. And psychologically, it's even worse. We're trapped in this miserable cycle.
Let's talk about that cycle, the cycle of pain and boredom. This feels so modern.
It's the existential hamster wheel. It starts with desire, or Wunsch. And desire, he says, is inherently pain. It's suffering.
Wow.
Because it comes from lack, from need. You want something you don't have. And that feeling of lack is pain.
So the suffering is baked into the wanting itself.
Exactly. Then, step 2, you get the thing. Achievement. Satisfaction. But Schopenhauer says this is never positive happiness. It's only negative. It's just the removal of the pain that was driving you.
It's the sigh of relief, not actual joy.
Precisely. And then comes the final agonizing stage. If a new desire doesn't pop up immediately to take its place, you fall into boredom. For a while. And he says boredom is just as tormenting as need.
That's the moment you finish a huge project or buy the thing you wanted for months, and then 2 days later you're just aimlessly scrolling, looking for the next thing to want.
That is the cycle. You're just oscillating between pain and boredom forever.
And this whole thing is made worse because we're all walking around thinking we're separate individuals.
That's the great tragedy. The veil of Moja. We're trapped in the principium individuationis, the forms of our own knowledge, time, and space that chop reality up into separate little egos.
So we're wearing these philosophical VR goggles that make us see ourselves as totally separate from everyone and everything else.
And the egoist, trapped behind this veil, thinks their pleasure is separate from another's pain. So they cause suffering to others to get what they want. But he has this idea of eternal justice. The egoist doesn't realize that the tormentor and the tormented are, at the deepest level, just two manifestations of the one and same will.
So when you hurt someone else, you're metaphysically hurting yourself.
You are striking yourself.
Okay, if existence is this miserable, the only logical goal is to find an escape. He lays out two paths, right? A temporary one and a permanent one. Let's start with the temporary escape, art.
Right. Art gives us a moment of peace, a little holiday from the will. It happens through what he calls pure cognition.
What does that mean?
It's when your intellect stops serving your desires. When you look at a beautiful painting or a landscape, you're not seeing it as something useful, something you want or that can hurt you. You just see it for what it is.
You're grasping the idea of the thing.
You're seeing the Platonic idea in it. You're
Mhm.
understanding what nature tried to say with that form. For a moment, you become a pure, will-less subject of knowledge. It's a temporary dream.
But not all art is created equal for him. Music is special.
Music is on a completely different level. It's supreme. Because it doesn't just show you an idea of the will like a painting of a tree does. He says music is a direct copy of the will itself.
It bypasses the middleman.
Totally. It's the most intimate mirror of that cosmic striving, which is why it hits us so directly and emotionally, bypassing our intellect completely.
So art is a nice vacation, but for permanent freedom, you have to go after the will itself. This leads to asceticism.
This is the final path. The permanent escape only happens when you actively deny the will to life. But this requires virtue. And for Schopenhauer, all true virtue, all pure love agape, caritas comes from one single feeling. Compassion. Mitleid.
And this is his big final showdown with Kant's ethics.
It really is. He says true moral action comes from compassion, that immediate intuitive knowledge that another's suffering is your own. He thought abstract rules like Kant's categorical imperative were totally sterile and useless. True goodness comes from feeling that the other person is you.
It's tearing a hole in the veil of Maja.
Yes, and when you fully realize that, it leads to the final stage. Complete resignation, holiness. This means voluntary poverty, complete chastity, non-retaliation. You affirm the world's suffering and you completely negate your own urge to live and participate. You deny the will.
And he saw this everywhere, right? In Eastern traditions and Christianity.
Exactly. He pointed to the Vedas, to Buddhism, to Christian mystics, and said, look, the majority of humanity has understood that this is the highest path. The end result is a transition into what, from our perspective, looks like empty nothingness.
But for him, that emptiness is a kind of salvation.
It is. He says, the life of a world overcomer, a Weltüberwinder, is far more significant than the life of any world conqueror. It's the ultimate expression of human freedom, because you're acting against the very foundation of your own existence.
So to bring it all together, Schopenhauer takes Kant's limit on knowledge, this world of representation, and he fills the void behind it with this terrifying, blind, irrational force, the will.
And in doing so, he makes suffering the essential, unavoidable fabric of life. He gives us this brutal but coherent map of human misery.
Right, and for a philosophy that is so deterministic, he offers this one really paradoxical path to freedom.
He does.
So what's the final provocative thought we should leave everyone with?
It's this. Consider what he's really proposing. The only true freedom you can ever have in this world appears at the exact moment you act against your own inner essence, the will to life. Every action you take is determined by the will, until you consciously choose to negate it. So think about what it means for your only path of freedom to be the denial of the very reason you exist, that conflict between your determined nature and the choice to negate that nature. That, for Schopenhauer, is the most profound contradiction in human life.